Tonight's guest, and I'll put a plug out there for my guest tonight. I've known this person for several years now, and can honestly say that it's been a grand friendship. And this person has probably opened my eyes to lots of different things. Mr. Jeffrey Seelman has been a guest on my show on several occasions. Going to try to talk a little bit about some different stuff tonight instead of, getting off on the negative, positive, evil, blah, blah, blah. And that probably won't happen because it always seems to go that way. But Jeffrey Seelman is a professional psychic / exorcist. And my first question for you tonight, Mr. Seelman, is what is an exorcist?
Hi, Craig. Thank you very much for having me on Insights Radio and the A1B Radio Network. It's always a pleasure to be on your show and your network. An exorcist is one who removes or banishes negative spirits from the vicinity of people and also property. And a modern exorcist, of which I am, also has the job of removing negative emotional energies from people and property, which means homes, apartments, and businesses. That's it in a nutshell. Getting rid of negative things. We can't kill spirits, but we sure can kick them out of our environments and our vicinity.
Jeff, let's expand on that a little bit, because I think that it's easy for me to understand what you do because of the energy work that I do. But can you expand on that a little bit and explain to people exactly how you do that? I mean, do you put your boxing gloves on and go in and go a couple rounds? Do you have some magic candle that you light? How do you go about doing this?
It's a good question. It's very important for an exorcist to keep in mind exactly who he or she is working for, and I work for my clients. And so it's not so much a boxing match between me and a negative spirit or a demonic spirit, but protecting my clients, protecting families, their homes, their businesses, their livelihood from attack. And I use a variety of techniques. Spirits essentially attack people on an emotional level. They are not able to enter in, nor do they live in the physical realm, which we live in. But they do live in the non-physical realm. And that non-physical realm is where our spirit or soul exists. Each one of us has two levels, essentially our physical body and our non-physical body. And that's happening right now at each one of us on different levels. And negative spirits attack us on that other level, that non-physical level. And what they try to do is amplify negative feelings that we might have, or transfer their negative feelings, their rage and their anger deliberately through our natural defenses, which is our aura. Many people have weak spots in their aura and even holes. Most people have problems with their aura, and transfer that emotional energy into their body's energy fields, causing us to feel angrier, more depressed, and a wide range of negative feelings that can be amplified by the attack of negative spirits or demonic spirits, which are two different kinds of spirits. So what I do is I intervene. I was born with psychic ability. I was born with the ability to see spirits, not all the time, but when I want to, when I turn on my front headlights. I thought everybody had that ability when I was real young, and I found out that they didn't. And so I use a variety of techniques. Everything is really science. Now, I believe in spirits. I believe in angels, and there are demons out there, and I even believe there is a God, whatever that might be. and all sorts of different kinds of beings out there. But I also believe in physical and non-physical science, and I have no qualms with physical science and scientists and what they teach and believe. I work in the field of non-physical science, and negative spirits must obey those laws, Craig. So the idea is that essentially there are things that we can do, each one of us, and things that I do as an exorcist in order to interfere with their attack upon innocent people, homes, and businesses. So I get in their way and I stop their energy, essentially by using non-physical energies and transforming those energies into different kinds of weapons, devices, and energies that have an effect of essentially breaking up their attack, turning back their energy on them. So essentially the energy that they're sending against people and through their auras, through their energy fields, are essentially reflected right back to them. And sometimes I have to do battle directly with the spirits, essentially using different kinds of weapons that I create, all out of non-physical energies, in order to deal with these negative spirits and banish them once and for all from the vicinity of people and homes and businesses. Businesses also get attacked quite frequently.
Jeff, when you say that they attack us, I guess, and I'm being kind of sarcastic in this question. I consider myself to be rough and tough. So how does something that really, doesn't have feet, doesn't have arms, doesn't have flesh, how does something like that affect me? I mean,
that's precisely how it works. The idea is we can't see them. And so they have an edge. They can see us, but we cannot see them. They can see our auras, which are essentially fields of energy that are generated by our spirit. Our spirit is not just some energy. It's actually our soul. It's who we are. And each one of us generates an aura, and many of us don't generate an aura very well, and they can see the weak spots in our aura, thinner spots, holes in our aura, and they send energy through that. So they actually see the weaker spots in our defenses. And so they don't have to attack us on a psychological level. They attack us on an energetic level. So if we get angry about something, which is pretty natural, not feeling good this morning or feeling a little bit cranky or whatever, they can actually send their energy in a form of rage, which is an energy, anger, which is an energy, hatred, another energy, actually send it through weak spots in our aura and amplify, kind of like a lightning rod, and really blowing it out of proportion. So the idea is they can amplify our feelings. If we're feeling negative, then if a spirit that is negative comes near us and attacks us, they're essentially generating terrible feelings. Now, just as an analogy, let me give you an example. If I was, standing next to you, and I was just full of rage and anger, I wouldn't really even have to say something, Craig, even if I wasn't facing you. Essentially, you could feel that energy radiating off of me. Even if I wasn't facing you, we all can. We all have these, built-in intuitions and psychic abilities. We all have psychic ability that essentially, tell us that the person next to us or close to us is feeling really angry. We can just tell when something is going on. When we can't see that person, it makes it more difficult to be able to pick out what's going on, and it makes it much more easier for that spirit to be able to affect us on an emotional level because we don't even know that they're there. So we think it's ourselves. So when we feel this terrible rage, it might be just us, or it might be somebody who is living who's thinking about us and sending us emotional energy, because when we think about somebody, we actually send them emotional energy. We don't have to know where they are. We just have to know who they are. And so spirits come close to us. They can't come into the physical realm, but they're kind of like sharks underneath the water. We can't really see them, but they're there. They're on a non-physical level, the same level as our spirit, and they generate emotional energy, very terrible emotional energies, anger, depression, hatred, rage. And essentially that can permeate into our energy fields of our spirit and up into our emotional states of mind, our feelings, and our psychological states. So actually it's pretty easy to attack us no matter how tough we are.
So is there like a particular type of person that these energies look for? I mean, is it a even playing field, or do they pick on sick people, mentally ill people, people that have money, people that are broke, bums? I mean, or is it just whoever they feel like going after?
Negative spirits do not play fair. And there are different kinds of negative spirits out there. Most negative spirits are just negative people who are dead and continue to do negative things. And then we have also demonic spirits, which is a different kind of spirit, more evolved. And so most of the spirits that attack living people are very close to the physical realm. And the question is, why are they close to the physical realm? I have found in my decades of work, Craig, that a lot of the spirits that do the attacking have a lot of mental issues of their own. A lot of rage, a lot of anger. They weren't happy in life. They're not happy in death. We carry all of our feelings and our personality with us when we die. We don't change at all, which is good news for some people and bad news for others. And so there are a lot of spirits out there full of rage that could be considered to be a negative state of mind, a mental illness, a psychological disorder. And so we can't expect spirits who have these kind of problems to play fair. So no, they don't attack people who are feeling great and are really strong and protecting themselves all the time. They do attack those people, but no, they tend to go after the weakest prey, meaning people who do not defend themselves, who are not protecting themselves properly. And also they attack children. They attack people who have psychological, mental issues. They attack old people. They attack anybody that they can get their energy gloves on, so to speak.
So, Jeff, when they do these attacks, are there telltale signs that we should be looking for? And if I am under attack, will I immediately know that I'm under attack and seek out help, or does it take some time? I mean, how do we know?
There's a couple of different ways. One way that some of your listeners may be able to relate to is we've all had these experiences of being angry and thinking about people that we haven't seen in a long time. Why are we thinking about these people? It's very possible that they're thinking about us and a connection has been made. And so they're thinking about us and an emotional connection is being made. Could be the middle of the night, could be the morning, whatever. And so look for unnatural feelings of anger and rage that seem too amplified, that seem out of place. Why am I so angry over this particular issue? Is it justified? Is this how I really feel? Am I feeling just really bad today? And so everything looks really negative? Or does it seem like maybe I'm picking up energy from somebody else or possibly even from a spirit? A spirit's going to try to get you to do something negative, to feel depressed, angry, and maybe act out upon those feelings. Maybe even do something negative. Say something negative to your significant other, maybe your boss at work or a coworker. and also in other circumstances, maybe even to commit a violent act. This is the goal of a negative spirit and also demonic spirits, to get you to feel bad, to amplify your anger, and to get you to do things that you would not normally do. So I guess, if you really, get these terrible feelings, that, I really want to hurt this person, I want to hit my significant other, those are the times that negative spirits would attack. They can actually, see anger as an energy. I do. Essentially, anger and rage and emotional energies, all emotional energies, can be very visual. Spirits can pick this up. Psychics can pick this up. And to a certain degree, we all pick this up on different levels, intuitional levels as well. And so spirits kind of roam around and they look for people that are easy targets. Someone's thinking about maybe, hitting their boss or hitting their significant other, waiting for that right moment when there's an argument, and coming close and generating a huge amount of rage. Neither one of these people are protecting themselves properly, and then that's when violence can happen.
So, Jeff, is it uncommon or common? I mean, if I'm under attack, is it by one spirit? I mean, or is it like an army of spirits that gang up on me?
Spirits have been known to act in gangs, essentially, act in groups in order to affect a change upon an individual, a family, or a group. But most negative spirits operate very much like criminals. And criminals also, as we know, they also have gangs, but they don't trust each other. And they're very much known for actually pulling guns and shooting each other in the midst of a crime or over some bad drug deal or a bank heist or whatever. Criminals don't trust each other. And most negative spirits have a criminal mentality. So they really don't like each other. They really don't trust each other. Although some of them sometimes do operate and cooperate in groups, but it's less common. Very often, negative spirits, meaning negative people who are dead and continue to do negative things, really don't have a lot of friends. And they don't have a lot of friends on a spiritual level. Very often, spirits that they were connected with, maybe their parents who have passed on or friends, try to help them and try to talk them out of these things. And so they hesitate to do these things, and they're kind of loners. So most of the spirits that I find attacking people, attacking families, businesses, homes, the family unit, usually act alone, but that's not the rule.
So, Jeff, if I'm being attacked, I mean, is it like a jab and then they're gone, or do they continue to attack?
It happens both ways. Very often, they'll strike once and try to get you to feel negative, but that's not really their goal. They'd like to see you destroy yourself. They're angry themselves. And as you know, angry people like to be around other angry people or to make other people angry. As an example, if you go into work and you're in a pretty good mood and somebody comes into the office or the workplace and they're really angry, and maybe they're always negative. And so they say something like, oh, well, another day, here we go. I hate the boss. I hate it here, whatever, many, many things they might say. And you say something like, hey, but it's Wednesday. Only 2 more days to Friday. And, what's their normal reaction? Think about it. This has happened to everybody. They don't really go, oh, yeah, you're right. Only 2 more days to Friday. No. Usually they say, they just kind of mumble or whatever and walk away. They're not going to buy into you being nice. They don't want to change. And so you actually saying something positive like, hey, it's only 2 days to Friday, is not something they're going to react to well. And they usually seek out somebody who feels like they do. Somebody who says, yeah, I know, I hate the boss too, and that kind of thing. So they tend to strike more than once. They tend to work on people until they get them to do something negative. And unfortunately, there are as many reasons for that as there are attacks and spirits. There's not one particular reason written in stone. But the idea is that if they can get you to do negative things, they feel better about themselves. They're not the only ones that are ugly inside. They're not the only ones that are really negative, and when you do something negative, it makes them feel a little bit better about themselves. There's no difference between spirits and people. Spirits are more perceptive, meaning that they can see not only the spiritual realm, the non-physical realm, very scientific, but also the physical realm as well. So they have that edge over us. Other than that, they're no different than us. And so essentially when people pass on, their personalities remain the same. And so, spirits are not some kind of big mystery creatures at all. They're just like us, and they have the same kind of character defects. And they find out very quickly when they pass on that these character defects and all of the angers and hatreds, prejudices that they have continue to operate after they die, because we bring our personality with us, and if our personality sucks, then it sucks after death too.
So let me ask you this, Jeff, and I'm going to throw a couple names at you. First one that comes to mind, Jeffrey Dahmer. Most recent is Mr. Castro. I can't think of his first name. The guy in Ohio that held the 3 women captive for years. Both deceased at this point. Jeffrey Dahmer, they pretty much disassembled everything in his apartment. This place, the house, they tore it down. And I guess I'm trying to make a correlation here between their deaths, and is it possible that because of them, number one, being discovered, number two, everything that was attached to them all at once was taken away from them? So would that in itself pull the negativity or the negative entities or spirits away from them? And is that why they ended up being deceased? Or am I like reading too much into this, or am I off on the wrong track here?
It's difficult for me to speak about Jeffrey Dahmer without talking just a little bit about my personal involvement in the aftermath of all of that. I'm from Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and so when that happened, long before he actually was murdered in prison, they were actually going to auction off his personal effects of his apartment. Now, why do people want those things? The idea being is that there is some kind of negative or evil charge with the objects that he touched and held. In his case, mostly the refrigerator and other things that were in his apartment, freezer and other things as well. And what happened was that I actually wrote the Milwaukee Journal Sentinel back then in the mid-'90s saying, as a psychic, I had my business back then as well, not to do this. This is why you shouldn't do this. This is what the people want out of this. Don't auction these things off, and if you have to, at least let me clear them first. And so I did a bunch of radio shows out of that, and it was did an article in the newspaper for them, and eventually, of course, a company bought off all of his personal effects and had them destroyed, which is fine with me. And so I think that is it the loss or whatever? I think that when they're caught, they're discovered, as being the creeps, the murderers, the lunatics that they really are. One of the things about Jeffrey Dahmer was that he said something very interesting while he was in prison. He said that he was one of the worst people who ever existed. But that's not really true. When it comes to mass murderers, he's actually pretty low on the totem pole. Yes, he did terrible things. I am not belittling the horrible, horrible things that he did. What I'm saying is that, he had quite an ego and a narcissistic personality, and evidently thought very highly of himself in a very negative and evil way. And so he wanted to stay in the general population in prison because he knew that eventually they would kill him. Not surprising, I'm not completely familiar, with what just happened. I just know that the Castro killed himself. And, my feeling about that is good riddance. And, too bad. We don't need people like that on our planet. And I think that when they're discovered, that they take a look at themselves or forced to take a look at themselves. And, of course, when they make it into the prison population, they are really low on the totem pole. And what they got away with, or what they thought they got away with, essentially, is shining right in their faces, where essentially people who commit murders and other negative crimes, consider them to be really the scum of the earth, which they are. And essentially, I think that they simply take the easy way out, which means in place of spending a whole life in prison, they take steps in order to end their life early, which is fine with me. I know that in Milwaukee, nobody cried when Jeffrey Dahmer was murdered in prison. It was not an emotional event, at all. Talking to people in Milwaukee and stuff, it was just fine news.
We'll take this question just a step further and expand on it just a little bit, just to get your opinion on something. Somebody is convicted of murder and sentenced to death, and before they make that final walk to the chamber or strapped into the electric chair, however they go about doing such, typically a priest, minister, whatever, gives them their last rites. Does that relieve them from the things that they did and release them from the negativity when they pass over?
No, it doesn't do a thing. A complete waste of time. Everyone is responsible for their own actions, and they will have to atone for their actions. And it's not forgotten. Ask any of their victims who are on the other side if any of that is forgotten and forgiven. And so, absolutely not. That is a religious belief that somehow that if you say you're sorry and you believe in a certain deity, that somehow your sins are going to be washed away and forgiven, and you're going to start out with a clean slate. I'm telling you that none of that is true.
So let me ask you this, and this kind of, again, one of those kind of far-out questions, but I want your opinion on it. Let's say, for instance, that my neighbor and I, we've been battling back and forth for the last 10 years, and every opportunity that I have to do something negative towards him, I do. Every opportunity that he has to do something negative towards me, he does. And ironically, this area is hit by a plane and we both perish. Do you think that battle continues in the spirit realm?
It all depends on what the battle is about. If it's something that can be worked out, sometimes people have personality differences and just don't get along. It's human nature. If there's a lot of negative things between you, there might be some hard feelings. If they are not major events and things that can be worked out, you could actually end up being, pretty good friends, or, you have something in common, that you both were killed in the same plane crash or something, and you might have some empathy for each other, realizing, that the things that you had, the differences that you had, the problems that you had were pretty small compared to what you could have done. You could have worked it out. So it all depends on what kind of people you are. And so it just, every circumstance is different. If there's a lot of problems between two people, then they're not so easily solved. if the problems, are not so big, and things just might be forgiven, and then you both move on, and we certainly wish that we lived a longer life, and all the things that we could have accomplished, all the people who miss us, all the things we could have done. We think about those kind of things when we're dead, essentially. When we become spirits, we drop our physical body. And sometimes we don't always sweat the small stuff, the small things we have, the problems between people that are really over issues, maybe to do with money or to do with, some personality issue that is small.
This might sound like a silly question to ask, and I know that you and I, we talk about different things on a fairly consistent basis, and I know that there's people out there that are psychic or mediums, et cetera, that communicate with their spirit guides, so have an understanding of that spirit communication. From an exorcist point of view, can you give us an idea of what it's like to communicate with a negative or a demonic spirit, Jeff?
I recommend not doing that. When I first started my business about 22 years ago, I tried to do that. I tried to have conversations with negative spirits, whether they were just people who were dead and being negative, or demonic spirits, which are far more powerful, kind of being the counterpart of angels along that same kind of power level, power grid. I found it to be absolutely worthless. It's the same kind of thing that if somebody is crawling through your window in order to steal your stereo, or worse, the idea of sitting that person down and saying, "Hey, why are you doing this?" "Well, I want your stereo." So I'm not a spirit psychologist, and I don't advocate trying, as some psychics say, to send that spirit to the light. For one thing, there's no such thing as the light. That is symbolism, the idea of moving away from the physical universe on a non-physical level, gravitating to where spirits actually congregate and where they live. That is essentially what they mean by the light. And so trying to talk a negative spirit into being a good spirit is about as difficult as trying to talk a criminal into being an honest citizen. It's going to take a lot of therapy. It's not going to happen in 10 minutes. I work, as I mentioned at the beginning of your program, Craig, I work for the clients, not for the spirits. And so I tried, a couple of decades ago, I gave it a good try, and I got really no response, whether it be from negative spirits or demonic spirits, that they had no interest in listening to me. I have nothing to offer them. And so the idea is that, they enjoy being negative for their own reasons. And they're just going to have to work it out with themselves. And there are lots of spirits out there, Craig, that are spirit psychologists, meaning that they can try to reach these spirits and hopefully change their mind and get them to release their negative feelings towards other people and themselves, and to begin to look at themselves and their character defects. These cannot be accomplished during a home clearing or a personal clearing, a business clearing. It's very distracting, time-consuming, and is never shown to have any merit to it, nor any success. I don't really feel very sorry for them. I feel sorry for my clients, that are having problems. The spirits attacking families, attacking children in their cribs. Attacking the livelihood of a person going to work so that their family is destroyed and their home is, foreclosed on. I don't have any sympathy for them at all. Now, I'm a very empathetic person, but the idea is that it's not my job, to try to change the nature and the illnesses, because as I mentioned before, a lot of these spirits, as far as I'm concerned, are mentally ill. They show signs of mental deterioration, and so there's nothing I can really say to change that. and it's just very distracting. And so the idea is to help the family in need, to help the individuals or the businesses, and to get them out of that environment. And then they can go on and hopefully get some help someplace, because they're not going to get it from me.
So let's talk about environments a little bit. I mean, is there a particular environment that a negative or demonic spirit lingers or hangs? In other words, am I more apt to be attacked in a certain location or a certain atmosphere more than in another atmosphere or location?
That is certainly true, Craig. It's an excellent question that's not asked enough of me. When we are in an environment that has a lot of emotional energy in it, and that emotional energy might be from present occupants, or it might be from the accumulation of emotional energy from past occupants in a home, in a business, also with our personal energy field. So negative spirits gravitate towards environments where there is a lot of negative emotional energy. Why? Because it's easier to transmit negative emotional energies that are generated by negative spirits into the energy fields of their intended victims when the atmosphere is thick and full of emotional energy. And that's how most telekinetic activity occurs. And that's why ghost hunters, I'm a ghostbuster, not a ghost hunter. I'm not out to prove the existence of ghosts. I can see them. So that's not my job. But the idea is that, so they look for environments, ghost hunters look for environments that are full of emotional energy, haunted homes, prisons, and other places where it's easier to get readings on spirits. And most of the spirits you'll find in these places are negative and have negative problems. You're not going to find positive spirit guides hanging around in prisons that are no longer functioning, in places where really bad things have happened, or in homes where there has been a history of violence or a lot of emotional energy. You know, even depression, substance abuse over the course of years builds up a lot of emotional energy. So the very homes that we live in, the past occupants, we have no idea who they were. There could be a lot of emotional energy in the homes, apartments, single-family homes, condominiums that we live in. And if there's a lot of emotional energy, negative spirits can see that, positive spirits can see that, we can feel it, and so it's that much easier to transmit negative emotional energies in a negative environment that is full of emotional energy. So they do gravitate towards it. They can see it on a visual level. Emotional energy is quite visible to a spirit. And it's quite visible to many psychics, like myself. I can actually see it. And so the idea is that if I can see it, spirits can see it. And so they go around and look for some of these environments, and they find environments that are full of emotional energy, and it's that much easier to have an effect upon the current inhabitants.
You know, this is kind of along that same line. I was watching the 6 o'clock news tonight, and you know, there was a shooting outside one of the local bars here in downtown last night, and then they went into the history of this bar, and it's not the first time that there's been a shooting, not the first time that something negative has happened either inside or outside this location. In fact, they're actually considering pulling the owner's liquor license because of all the activity there. And then I think about the whole thing of the drinking and the sitting in the bar. I mean, they call it spirits. They call it spirits for a reason. And I know there's times that I've hung out with friends and didn't get into the drinking realm of things, and you sit there and you drink soda, and you know you're there at 5:15, and it's, hey, you can actually have a conversation, and you know by 9 o'clock you know what I mean, and it's so is that a pretty good place for negative or demonic spirits to be found?
Oh, absolutely. And nothing to be said about alcohol on a negative level. It has a lot of positive attributes to it. I'm in Chicago this week writing my book, my audio book, speaking it, dictating it. And there's a lot of speakeasies around here, in Chicago, so I don't want to say anything negative about bars. But, yeah, when people are drinking, they release a lot of emotional energy. And that is true of just about everyone. And so that emotional energy does accumulate in the environment. And it's kind of interesting, that bar owners, tavern owners should be my best customers. And they're my worst customers. And here's why. And I meet so many, bar owners who say, wow, I could really use your services, Jeffrey, that it doesn't really feel right in here and we've seen things and whatever. But bar owners tend to be afraid to change their environment because they have this misconception that they're going to lose their base clientele if they change the emotional energy of the atmosphere from a very thick emotional energy into something where that is gone. It's actually not true. Over the years, it's just been proven that when I clear restaurants and bars, and restaurants that have bars and bars themselves, they actually make more money. People feel more comfortable in environments that are free from negative emotional energies. But bars, everybody goes there to drink pretty much. And so that they release a lot of emotional energy into the atmosphere, and if it's not cleared out, things can happen.
So let me ask you this, Jeff. What can the average person out there listening, are there some simple little things that they can start doing right now, right this minute, to prevent some of this? Or if they think that they might be being messed with, or if they feel like, maybe I'm not really sure, but some things have changed in my life, and some very negative stuff has been happening, what can they do?
Strengthen their auras and learn how to create protective shields so that emotional energy that is generated by other people, that is accumulated in environments, whether it's in the home or the workplace, in stores and shops, or generated by spirits, does not get into your energy fields. And I just have to say, it's not a plug for myself, but I would say, go to my website and download my audio lessons, and I'll tell you why. Several decades ago, I studied psychic personal protection, and I was very unhappy with what I read. Very well-intentioned, but doing things for 10 minutes in the morning and 10 minutes in the evening doesn't really protect oneself from these things. I developed a different kind of protection system that is meant to be brought up in 10 seconds flat, that you can bring up anytime, anywhere, any place. And one of the problems also I found, I studied this stuff for 10 years before I even started my business, that when the old style protection systems, very well-meaning people who wrote these books, would always teach people to essentially visualize, which means create these different kinds of protective shields from the outside in, meaning that you visualize yourself with some kind of bubble or some kind of glowing light around you. Problem with that is that if you're looking and visualizing yourself doing that, then that part of you that's outside looking at yourself is not protected. So I teach people how to protect and create protection systems from the inside out, so that you're actually in the middle of all of these things so nothing can get at you. Instead of actually, visualizing yourself standing there for 10 minutes in the morning, and creating this bubble around you, part of you is already not protected if you're visualizing yourself with a bubble around you. The idea with my stuff is that it's much more effective and powerful is that you're essentially in the middle of it all, creating a multi-leveled, multi-layered protection system is made of different kinds of shields. So if one fails, the other one works. So they have the negative emotional energy, whether it's in the environment, loose emotional energy. It's not alive, it's just energy. It's in environments, in stores, shops, homes, businesses, everywhere, or that people generate, or that spirits generate, can't get through this multi-layered protection system. And so I teach people how to do that through the phone or Skype sessions, or also you can download that from my site. So it's and the reason I'm saying that is that it's very difficult for me to recommend other people's protection systems when I know that mine works really well.
Jeff, let me ask you this. I'll throw this out there. I mean, I use your protection system, and I know it works. But it's one of those things where, it's not like your alarm clock where you set it and forget it. You just hit the button, in the morning when it goes off, and, you don't have to do anything. It's something that you have to work at on a consistent basis. But that's true with everything in life when you really think about it, And as you were talking, I was sitting here and I was thinking, it's kind of like a diet. I mean, you don't do your diet thing in the morning and then eat 3 bowls of ice cream for lunch. It's something that you have to stay consistent with. Where do you think we, as humans, what's the biggest deterrent, and why do we fail at protecting ourselves?
Because most people don't believe in what they can't see, and they're also taught by their well-meaning spiritual and religious systems that someone else is going to protect them. That all they have to do is believe in a higher deity and they're covered, kind of like some kind of weird insurance program. And, it's true that essentially that there are higher spirits out there that do help people protect themselves. But they also want us to do something too.
Right.
They want us to protect ourselves because we are capable of learning how to protect ourselves as well and not be dependent upon just higher spirits protecting ourselves when we have that capability to do that. My stuff is meant to be brought up in 10 seconds flat. Like I tell people, when you get out of your car or your transportation system, you get off the tram, whatever, and you're going into that grocery store, which these days is a very negative place, on the way from your car or the tram or the bicycle or whatever, that's where you want to put up your protection. Because my stuff you can put up in 10 seconds flat. And so before you get into the store, as opposed to doing it in the morning for 10 minutes and 10 minutes in the evening. So I think, the problem is that we rely upon belief systems that tell us not only that somebody else is going to protect us completely so we can sit back and do nothing. I belong to this particular religion. I'm covered. Like I said, just like some kind of weird insurance program. Or even worse, that I can do anything I want to anybody that I want, and at the end of my life, as long as I change my mind or I say that I'm sorry or I change my belief system and believe in a particular deity, that all of my deeds, all of my sins, all the negative things that I've done are going to be washed away. And that is just not true.
One of the things that you and I have talked about in the past, and one thing that I completely agree with you on, I don't have an issue taking care of myself with the protection during the day, but I also realize that at night when my head hits the pillow, along with other things, I also need to bring up my protection. Why is that important?
When we sleep, part of our consciousness actually goes and leaves her body and goes out on these great adventures at night, what we call dreaming. Now, a lot of my clients have said throughout the years that they don't dream, but everybody does. Dreams are like recess. Essentially the spirit realm being our home and the earth being kind of like a school, and dreams are recess. And when people are sleeping, they go out on these dreams, and we all have these really crazy dreams, and we don't act normally. And the reason is because part of our consciousness is still focused on the physical while we're sleeping, and we're not completely together while we are out there dreaming. We come into contact while we're dreaming with other people who are dreaming while they're sleeping, and also spirits who are fully conscious. So we're interacting with a number of different kinds of people and spirits, and so it is important for us to protect ourselves, and it is more difficult. What happens is that if you learn how to protect yourself, eventually that protection system is going to be second nature, and it's always going to be there. But it is a little more difficult, because we are out there in the dream realm. And as you know, most of us do return in the morning, and the alarm clock goes off, and we might have had some crazy dreams, but then we get up and we go to work and everything's okay. So, it's kind of a safe place in a way. But essentially, if you do personal protection correctly, eventually it's always going to be there.
Right.
And so it's just a matter of, doing it enough. And I don't recommend people do it all day long. You don't have to do that. But doing a little bit of protection as you do before you go to sleep goes a long way.
Mr. Jeffrey, I want to give you the opportunity to put your contact information out there so that people can find not only your protection system, but also find you if they should be in need of your services.
Absolutely. You could go to my website, starclear.com, just as it sounds, starclear.com, and my email address is clearings@yahoo.com. You can find me all over Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and also on the internet, as I said, starclear.com. This week I'm in Chicago. I just finished this morning my audiobook, which is going to be all about psychic protection. It's a how-to book where you can learn how to do that, the latest information, latest techniques and methods that are not even in my downloads even. It's the latest stuff. Also, home clearing and business clearing is also involved. I've been working on that as well as working on clients this week in Chicago. I've hardly had a chance to make it out of the hotel here, in downtown Chicago. I'm going out for lunch and occasionally dinner and a little bit of photography and stuff. Other than that, it's been work. But finally this morning, I got my audiobook done, and that will be out in the middle of September. And you can go to my website or Amazon.com to pick that up. And I decided to do an audiobook just because that's the best way that I teach, is through talking. I do tend to repeat myself like a lot of teachers do. And but go to my website, starclear.com. It's loaded with information about me, and read and find out if I'm the guy that can help you. I'm very easy to get a hold of. I have direct telephone numbers and hotline numbers and email and text information up there. And I do return people's calls and texts. And I also am on Skype as well. And all that information is on my website, starclear.com. And so I'm very easy to get a hold of. And if you have any questions, please get a hold of me. I do not charge for telephone consultations or email consultations. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them just to see if you need my services or not.
Jeffrey, as always, it's been a pleasure, and I really appreciate you spending the last 55 minutes with us. What can I say, man? You rock.
Oh, you rock too, Craig. Craig and I talk a lot off of the radio. We have conversations about just about everything. We talk about everything. We're really great friends. And Craig asked me to come on Insights Radio, and I just jumped at it, as I always do, and said, absolutely. Insights Radio is a great radio show, and Craig is one of the best radio interviewers I have ever had the pleasure of encountering and meeting. Is this guy great or what?
Man, you better
Not
get
just
around.
The question, what a voice! What a voice! And and so just thank you so much for having me on Insights Radio and the A1B Radio Network. It's just great to be a guest on your show.
I appreciate it, Jeff.